Live with CDP Sports Talk, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and TuneIn. Now, here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Season 8, Episode 39, overall 424 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, or give the dealership a call at 519-824-0210. Or you can email the dealership at info@barrycullen.com. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show is on weeknights on WQEE 99.1 FM from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern, the home of Southern Talk and Sports. I hope everyone's doing well on this. I can't believe it's already Friday, August 16th. 2024. Summer's just flying by. The Canadian National Exhibition, I believe, is underway in Toronto, which signals the end of summer here in Ontario. And I'm looking forward to my guests tonight. Their names are Emily Paul and Kim Tweed, and they're the hosts of their own podcast show called Confidentially Controversial, reviewing movies from the 1980s. And I'm excited to have them on to talk about their podcast, how they started it up, and their latest episode, which was released today. And I'm looking forward to it. They're both from New Jersey as well. Good afternoon, Emily and Kim. How are you doing?
We're doing excellent. It's so nice to be here. Thank you for having us.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, and how's things in New Jersey right now?
Pretty good. It's coming up to the end of the summer. We live in a very popular touristy area, so we're excited to see everybody kind of leave the good stuff to us.
That's right. But we've been okay with the weather and everything else. You know, you got to love New Jersey. It's the best state in the lower 50s. So yeah, we're happy to be here, though. Thank you so much for having us on as guests.
Well, you're welcome as well. And I have to get back out there. I haven't been to the Philly area, New Jersey area in 10 years, and I need to get back out there. Are you guys close to Philly, or are you more close to New York City?
No, we're Philly. We're in southern New Jersey, down the shore by the beach. So we're Philly.
About an hour and a half to Philly.
Because I have a friend that lives in New Jersey, in Somerdale, New Jersey. I think it's about 20 minutes from Philadelphia.
I don't know where that is.
We don't know.
No. We don't leave the southern part of the state very often.
We don't look at road signs. We don't really know. Sorry.
But congratulations on your podcast show. And I guess today your 58th episode came out today as well. You want to tell our audience about your latest episode?
You can go ahead, because it was your pick.
Oh, it was my pick. So yeah, our latest episode came out. Our episodes do come out every Friday. And this week we watched Who Framed Roger Rabbit on the podcast. So that one was pretty special because we both hated it. And that doesn't happen very often where, one of us brings something to the podcast and we watch it. And we both mutually agree that it was not the best movie.
Yeah. So the way that our podcast works is that each week we take turns picking the movies. So the other one doesn't know. So this week's episode was Kim's pick. She picked it, she researched it, got all the facts together. And then when we record it, that's when the other person finds out what the movie that we're going to watch that day is. Because we do actually sit there and we record the first part of the movie, the first part of the podcast. We go and we watch the movie, and then we come back and we talk about our reaction from it. So this time, I think right from the beginning, I was not excited about watching Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Usually Emily is the more optimistic of the two of us, and she's pretty okay with anything that we want to watch. But this one, she was pretty upset from the start as soon as it was revealed that it was Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah. What are your feelings about Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Chris?
Not a big fan of it. There was a lot of great movies in the 80s, but there were some duds, and and that movie really didn't do anything for me. And How I Met You guys was through your YouTube channel, and I believe the one movie you're reviewing, the Incredible Shrinking Woman movie from 1981. I was only 9 years old at the time, and they said it was a comedy, but I thought it was a little more on the dark side than a comedy.
Yeah. Well, the fun thing about our podcast is that a lot of the times we haven't seen the movies in a very long time either. So the way that our podcast started is that we've been best friends for 30 years now, a very long time.
That's amazing.
And we've loved movies and we always talk about them. And we've been big movie watchers for our entire lives, both of us, before we even knew each other. And we've talked about these movies, and we love them and they're a huge part of our lives. But we kind of got to thinking after not seeing them for a while, are they that good?
And also just remembering bits and pieces of things. Like you'll remember something that, was very small part of the movie, but it stayed with you for 25 years for some reason. So, we kind of got this idea that maybe we should go back and watch them and see what they were really all about.
Right. So with Incredible Shrinking Woman, that was my pick, and Kim had never seen it before. And that was a huge movie. When I was a kid, we watched it all the time. I have an older sister and a younger brother. And it was one of those movies that we just watched a lot. And I would sing the Galaxy Blue song from the movie all the time, had great memories from it, Lily Tomlin. And in my memory, because I hadn't seen it in decades, this was a comedy that was for kids. And when we went back and we watched it,
it was not for kids.
It was not for kids.
No, I totally agree with you. But you know what? It was a little more comedy side to that movie than the original movie, I guess, the Incredible Shrinking Man movie. That was from 1957, and that's a science fiction black and white movie. And that one, I don't know if you guys will go back that far to review that one, but that one was more darker than this one.
Well, what's interesting is that movie came up when I was researching it, because obviously this was based on that. This was Lily Tomlin's take. And that movie was really written by Lily Tomlin and her partner as this vehicle for her. And, Lily Tomlin was a famous comedian, so that's why you'd figure that the big movie that she would write for herself would be a comedy, but it's not. It's really more of an issues movie.
Yeah.
And they're all over the place with the issues. Like what we were talking, because we knew this would come up. So we were kind of refreshing ourselves on a little bit. But what I wanted to say about that 1957 movie is that that person that wrote the original hated this version, the Lily Tomlin version, and is on record with his hate for this movie. But yeah, it's got issues talking about, the environment, chemicals.
And it talks about advertising, the impacts that all this advertising has on our world. And that was in 1981, like you said. So imagine now what a remake would be like.
Right. I don't think anyone would remake this movie. They shouldn't.
Not a good idea.
No, they shouldn't.
No, I agree with you. They should just leave it as it is. But I know you've done some other movies, like obviously Major League and obviously Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Major League, I liked the first one, but I found it was more of a love story than a comedy. I found Major League 2 was the best one out of all of them.
Oh, interesting. We might have to. I don't think I've ever seen Major League 2.
Major League 2 is better.
One of our favorites.
Yeah, I love that movie, and maybe we love it because we definitely trend more towards the romantic kind of movies.
A lot of people tell us that we watch girl movies, that we don't watch enough boy movies. And at first we didn't really know what that meant. And then as we've watched more and more together, we do kind of see a trend.
Right. We definitely, but I love Major League. And what we loved about that movie was learning that they actually all learned to play baseball to be in that movie. And some of them had background, like Charlie Sheen pitched in college.
That's true.
But then he got thrown out of college or something. There's always a story.
That tracks for Charlie Sheen. Typical Charlie.
But you know what? Generally the original is usually the best in the movie series. Yeah. But in this case, I thought the second one was the best one. Major League 3 was horrific in 1994, and it's the same as and if you guys remember the Police Academy movies in the 80s,
of course.
The first 3 were great. Police Academy 1, 2, 3 were good, and then they got silly with 4, 5, 6, and 7.
They got sillier.
Yes.
No, that's possible.
I don't know. Well, it's funny because we love Steve Guttenberg.
Yeah.
He's been on the pod how many times now?
Oh, quite a bit. He was just most recently on the Cocoon episode, obviously. So we love talking about the Goot.
Yeah, he's great. He's great. And he was great in Cocoon. Oh my gosh. That was peaks Gutenberg.
Yeah.
He was looking good.
I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that movie in 30 years. Now, I was gonna say, are you guys just focusing on the big popular ones for the movies from the 80s, or are you trying to find the ones that are kind of more obscured movies from the 80s too?
I think it's a mix of both. It's really more, we started bringing movies to the podcast that we've seen before. So, Emily somehow has seen a lot of very obscure movies in her lifetime. I feel like I run a little more mainstream. And so we're bringing things that we just loved as children, loved to watch, or that, we both have brothers and sisters that we like to watch with our families. So it's really a mix.
Yeah. And that is the criteria. When I'm picking a movie, I try and pick something that I have some sort of a connection to, whether it's having watched it or some of these movies, they were so popular. We just heard about them as little kids and it still impacted us because it was out there in the media so much. But yeah, I do we watched a lot of weird, obscure movies like The Peanut Butter Solution, which you love. Did you ever see that movie?
I might have. It's been a long time.
And then The Secret of
NIM. Yeah. That was a good one.
Was it?
It was good. But yeah, so we try and pick a lot of different ones. We pick really popular ones, but then we also pick ones that ends up nobody really knew about.
And I think too, TV was so different when we were kids that, you were home alone a lot. You were left to watch whatever was on television TV. Or like my parents had HBO. So I would just watch movies back to back all day long. And you just ended up watching the most random things. So we have very, all of a sudden we'll bring a movie up that is kind of far out there because it was on HBO got the rights to it in 1985 and played it 7 times a day.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that's one of the things we really wanted to explore, because when you think about movies now, especially movies for kids, they are for kids. The powers that be really think through the messages that they're putting out there. And we love that. We think that that's great. And that's something important to do, to put great messages out there for kids and to make sure that you're thinking about, mental health and all the other things. As you know, Chris, they were not thinking of that when we were kids. They didn't care. They were like, it's a movie. There's a kid in it. You should watch it. And,
and also really, we've come to find out in our research that PG-13 really didn't exist. So a lot of things you were either PG or R, and they often aired on the side of PG. They were just like, let them watch it. It's going to be fine.
They'll be okay. They need to grow up somehow. They need to learn about these things someday.
Right.
Absolutely. Hey, by the way, I didn't get my first VCR until 1986, but I was reading on the news today, there's a woman in Philadelphia that recorded every TV episode of TV shows from 1979 to 2012, over 71,000 tapes. And I guess somebody preserved it. And it's like, unfortunately, my VCR is long gone, and all the tapes that I used to tape TV shows and movies on TV are long gone as well.
Mm-hmm. I think my parents actually still has theirs. And if you tape them at a certain speed, you could get 3 movies per tape.
Yes.
So the thing that I would love, and I would love to see, is the commercials that would happen. Because remember, you would fast forward through all the commercials, but I would love to watch one of those tapes and just watch the commercials.
Different time in that. And you know what? I found the 80s was a great time to grow up because it was just a different time. You had to socialize with people. A phone call was a big deal. Kids were playing sports when they're out of school, and there was more socialization than there is now. There are advantages to today too, but I found the 80s was a fun time for movies, TV shows, and especially music.
Yeah, well, we love all that, and we love when there's a movie that has all of the things in it. One of our big movies from our first season was Pretty in Pink, and that was because so what we've done, and we didn't go into the show with this idea, but it just kind of happened. So Pretty in Pink was one of those movies for us that was quintessential, iconic. We loved it. We just quote it all the time. love this movie. And the thing we really love about that movie is James Spader. He's kind of our favorite. So what we started doing, because he's in Mannequin, and we didn't realize he was in Mannequin when we watched it. And then we started this thing where we would try and do, with people always try and connect Kevin Bacon to each thing. So we started doing that with James Spader. So all of our season 1 movies, and there were 50 movies in our first season. It was ambitious, but we connected every single one to James Spader. So we know all about the filmography of Mr. James Spader. This season, we decided instead of James Spader, we were going to pick someone else. So this season, we've been focusing on Christian Slater. So it has nothing to do with their last names. It has to do with the fact that Kim was going to
mildly obsessed with Christian Slater for a time in my youth. Yes.
So every movie that we watch, we somehow have to connect to James Spader and Christian Slater. And I was just doing my research we're going to do a podcast actually tonight, and it's my pick, and you don't know what it is yet, but I will tell you that figuring out the Christian Slater connection was probably the hardest thing I did today. And I worked today. I worked a real job today. And that was the hardest thing.
Okay. Yeah, it's been a little more difficult with Christian Slater than it was with James Spader. We found that James Spader wasn't as discerning in his role choices. He'll pretty much take any job. So he was in a lot of movies.
Can you give us a little bit of a hint?
For the movie that we're doing?
Yeah.
Oh, a little bit of a hint.
Do it. I won't guess anyway.
You won't guess it anyway?
Yeah.
It is a movie that it came out. Okay, I'm trying to think of my facts. It did okay in the box office, not great. It lost money at first, eventually made it back. It came out the same week as it was up against Fright Night and Back to the Future.
Oh, the original.
So it had some really hefty competition, but I will say it is a movie that, so you're not going to know this, Chris, but she will. It's a movie we've talked about quite a bit, and it was scarring to us.
Oh,
it was scarring.
All right, now I'm nervous.
But go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that's the fun thing is really surprising each other. So one of the movies we did recently, we brought up Steve Guttenberg and Cocoon. So, you were around then. You remember Cocoon was a huge movie. It was so popular. It was kind of everywhere. First of all, not a kid's movie at all. Like, I don't know why anyone let a kid watch that movie. No. There was a kid in it. The kid from The Never-Ending Story was in it briefly. But we watched that movie. And like I said, we reveal the movie at the beginning. And we have the other person guess. And when it was revealed to Kim that this movie was Cocoon, she started to cry.
I was pretty
crazy,
pretty impacted by Cocoon somehow that I don't remember in my youth. So when I knew that I had to watch it again, I was not happy.
Right. It was triggering. And we still haven't gotten to the root of it, but we hit on some heavy trauma. And we don't know why.
I'll tell you, there's 2 movies that scared the hell out of me in the 80s. The first one was the original Poltergeist in 1982 with Heather O'Rourke in it. And that movie should not, at that age, I was 10 years old back then, and that should not have been for kids under 13.
Chris, we have to talk because we did Poltergeist last season and it was my pick because of the exact same thing. So I watched, that movie was rated PG. And like you said, starred Heather O'Rourke. Heather O'Rourke was born, I believe, the same year that I was. So you have to imagine, I watched it when it came out. I was the same age as the little girl in the movie that gets sucked into a closet. I was allowed to watch this movie. This movie scared the daylights out of me. For years after that, I was terrified. I have a very distinct memory of watching that movie on HBO in my parents' living room. It was a sunny day, going outside and sitting on a swing set by myself and thinking about life and death. I mean, that movie ruined me. But I have to say that movie to this day is one of my favorites because it impacted me so much. And I think when we watched it, it's a good movie. It holds up. It's a really good movie. And also the bones. Do you know about the skeletons in that movie?
No.
Okay. At the end of that movie, when she's in the swimming pool and all the skeletons are popping up all around her, right? The mom. Those skeletons are real human remains. They got them, whoever was doing the set design, they got them on sale and they just threw them in. But the woman who played the mother, Mary Beth, I forget her last name, but the woman who played the mom, they didn't tell her. They didn't tell her that they were real human remains. They just threw him in a pool, said, go ahead, get in the pool and scream. And it was legit terrifying, legit.
Emily remembers all of her research somehow. I couldn't tell you a thing about a movie I watched. But we do a lot of, as you can tell, we do a lot of research. So we give a lot of facts at the beginning of the show, which is always really interesting because we're, we spend a decent amount of time beforehand, kind of like digging in and looking to see, what fun things happened while on the set, who might have been cast instead of this person. It's always Harrison Ford or
no, Harrison Ford was up for every role. Every role in the 1980s. And people were like, can we get Harrison Ford?
Right.
No, not Harrison Ford. Can we get Charles Grodin? Get him on the phone.
Yeah. So we always look up those kinds of things and then, really just see what else was happening. And then often we also look into the star of the movie and see what they were doing with their lives at the time, because a lot of stars of the 80s were a little problematic. Sometimes they had some things going on the side. For instance, we found out in Pump Up the Volume that Christian Slater wasn't allowed to drive on set of the movie because he had lost his license recently because of a DUI. So they had to rewrite the script in order to have him not drive a car for some reason.
Which that's stupid. You don't need to drive a car in a movie,
right.
But still interesting fact.
Yeah.
And the other movie that scared the hell out of me in the 80s actually was a Disney movie, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, with Rick Moranis in it.
Love
yes.
that movie.
Okay. We haven't gotten there yet. It's going to happen like any day.
Yeah.
I feel like one of us is going to pick this movie. It's definitely been on I keep a running list.
So do I.
Because what happens now is that people they'll write to us. Some of them that are family members will just tell us movies that we should do for the show. And so we both have these running lists of movies, and every once in a while I'll just think of stuff. And there's so many. I think our podcast is going to go on for a long time because there's so many great movies from the 80s. It was great. It was a great time for cinema, a great time for really weird movies. They were making all kinds of crazy stuff
because there were so many movies being made too. I feel like
I have one for you guys that is obscured. Being Canadian, I don't know if you remember Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas, the McKenzie brothers from SCTV.
Yeah.
They did a movie in 1983 called Strange Brew, and that's a movie you guys should look into doing.
Yeah,
it's obscure. It's a comedy, but it's a better movie than people give it credit for. And 41 years later, people still want to see a sequel.
So I will give you another clue to the movie we're doing tonight. One of those two actors you just said is in the movie that we are going to watch later on today.
Is it Honey, I Shrunk the Kids?
It is not Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Oh, man.
Just keep guessing. Keep guessing.
Right. I would say it's Rick Moranis.
I'm going to guess. You think?
Yes. But I'm definitely going to have to check out your next episode.
Yeah. Well, it'll be in a few weeks. We do try and tape them a little bit in advance. So the ones, we've got a couple that'll come out before this one that we're talking about. So if we're talking about this one on Monday, this will come out in 3 weeks.
I think so.
Yes. And you'll know it. You'll know it when you hear it. You'll be like, that wasn't the one. And then you'll hear it and go, that was the one she was talking about.
So people can give you guys suggestions for movies to look at in the future then?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. We love it when people reach out to us. We get people who, like I said, we were talking before the show, and our podcast is listened to all across the world. We get emails from people who suggest movies to us.
We have an email address is confidentlycontroversial@gmail.com. So you can definitely send us an email and tell us, what movie you think we should watch. Or tell us all the things that we don't say properly, because there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of things that we don't say properly.
We make a lot of mistakes, and we never.
It happens. So. And you know what? It's part of the process, and the only way you get better is to learn from your mistakes. But you know what? Be yourself. That's what I tell all my guest podcasters, radio show. Be yourself. Don't try to be somebody that you're not.
Absolutely.
And we're just trying to have fun with it, and really just, honestly, we started doing it because, like Emily said, we wanted to hang out more. And this gives us an excuse with our families every weekend to be like, sorry, we have to do the podcast.
Yep, I'm sorry. I would love to do that work that you want me to do, but I have to do a podcast now.
And it's very important and serious. So, we started doing that, and now, 50 some episodes later, here we are.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And I have your website down here on my ticker, confidentiallycontroversial.com. I'm going to put you guys both on the spot.
Okay.
How did you come up with the podcast and the name of it?
Do you want me to do it?
Yeah. Go
Okay. So, so we had, and this is, I wanted to just kind of bookend what you were just saying in terms of just be yourself. Another thing with that is sometimes you just have to dive in and do a thing. We had been talking about this idea of a podcast for a bit. We, like I said, we've been best friends for 30 years. We talk every day. We're that level of best friends that people just know that we're best friends. And we had been talking about this idea of a podcast. We liked it, but then we started to kind of talk to other people about it and just say, what do you guys think of this idea? And the feedback we were getting was, that would be great. What a great idea. You guys should definitely do that. So as with most things in our lives, we didn't put much thought into it and we just did it, because that's sometimes the best way to do a thing, is just to do a thing. And we were thinking about what we should call it. And the reason why we call it Confidently Controversial is that the movies in the 80s, they weren't overthinking it. They didn't really care. Nowadays people worry too much sometimes about, the words that you're using, and
Politically correct too.
Politically correct kind of stuff. And, we love that. We love that people are putting more thought into things these days. That is good. But in the 80s, they weren't.
They just let it all hang out.
They let it all hang out. And, we often, because we are from the 80s, I know that we say things that are probably not the right thing to say. I sometimes get stressed out about it, but then everything we say and everything we're looking at with these movies always comes from the best places in our hearts. And we are always learning things. But yeah, like the movies back then, they didn't really.
And they were controversial and they were confident about it. They didn't care what you thought. They were just like, we're going for it. We're putting it out there. It's going to happen.
Right. Like Weird Science. We're going to turn that big brother into a giant turd. And we don't care. We're going to market this to kids. And we don't really care. We're going to make a movie about a woman that shrinks. A lot of the movie is going to be about her as a shrunken woman having sex with her husband. And we're going to market it to young people. And we don't care.
We're going to have that level of confidence about it, that we're just going to throw it out there.
Yep. And do the thing. So that's Confidently Controversial.
And that brings up another movie too, Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. Originally it was 1958. And then they did a remake with Daryl Hannah. I believe in 1993. So that's another obscure movie.
That's in the window.
The 90s had some weird movies too as well, different ones.
Yeah. Yes, and we've done some from the 90s. We definitely aren't strictly 80s. Most of the movies are from the 80s because we are from the 80s. That's when we were little kids. That's when we were watching these movies. We did a movie that'll be coming out next week. Is the movie Sgt. Pepper's? Did you ever watch that movie?
Which one was it again?
It's called Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. It features the Bee Gees and Peter Frampton.
I've heard of it, but I don't think I ever saw it.
It's wild.
It's wild. It was, as I say in the show, it was my Moana when I was it came out in 1978. So the year after I was born.
I was 6 years old then. I'm old.
I was a baby when it was born. But my parents were huge Beatles fans, which does not make sense that they would like this movie because Beatles fans generally hated this movie.
And the Beatles are not in it.
The Beatles are not in it.
Don't be confused by the title and think that the Beatles might be in it because they're not. Just their songs are. I was waiting for them the whole time.
Though. Billy Preston is in it, and he was the fifth Beatle, so he is in it. But so that movie is from 1978, and you liked it.
I loved it. It's very strange. Has no words. It's all singing.
And George Burns is the narrator throughout the whole movie. Yeah. And like I said, this was a movie that my earliest memories are of this movie, of putting on little shows to this movie when I was a kid. And I will say that this movie does feature a drug and alcohol and orgy scene. So I don't know why my parents let us watch it, but they did because it was the 80s and that's what they did.
Just like Porky's came out in 1982 and I was only 10 years old. There's no way back then I should have been able to watch that movie. No. You're right. There were some movies out there. There were some movies back then that I watched when I was young that I probably shouldn't have, but it was, like you said, it was more laid back and lax than it is now.
Yeah.
And you were a latchkey kid, or you were a kid that was home, all summer long without summer camp or anything like that. Movies were your summer camp. So that's what it was for us.
Not for me. My parents were home. They knew what we were watching. My mom was like, I like that movie. Let's watch it again.
Do you guys remember the first movie you went to in a movie theater? I know for me it was May 1977 when Star Wars came out. My late dad took me, and that was like a big deal as a kid seeing a space soap opera like Star Wars in 77. And who would have thought 50 years later it would be this big, huge thing?
Right.
I remember going to the drive-in with my parents when I was very little, and I would just fall asleep in the back of the car. They would take me and they would just go to whatever movie they wanted to watch, and I would just fall asleep in the back, and they would have a date night, I guess.
Supposedly the first movie that I was ever brought to was Grease, because I think that came out in 1977. Yeah,
78. Yeah,
78. So I would have been a baby, so I don't remember it, but I was taken to see Grease. One of the first movies that I remember going to see in a movie theater. It's so hard to pinpoint what the movie was that I saw early on. Do you remember the movie Time Bandits? I don't. For some reason, that's jumping into my head as one of the first ones. Terry Gilliam. That one's wild. Wait till we do that. We will do that movie one day.
Okay, I might have saw that, but that one just doesn't.
Yeah.
Like I said, we watched. I don't know what it was with my parents. There were a
lot of space movies, a lot of exploration of space movies in the early 80s.
I don't remember seeing the first Star Wars. I remember seeing. I think we went to see Empire, but I don't really remember it. I do remember very clearly going to see Jedi in the movie theater.
That was 83.
Yeah. So I would have been 6 years old, and I very clearly remember going to see that. I remember going to see E.T. I saw E.T. a lot in the movie theater.
Yes.
They kept bringing it back.
That was a great movie. I hope they never, ever reboot E.T. Yeah, I really hope they don't.
And we are actually proponents of not remaking the movies often, not because some of them we just feel like no one should remake this movie. Sometimes they're bad, and it's like don't remake this movie.
Leave it be.
Just leave it be. But I don't like it when they remake them. I feel like they did it, just stick with it. What was the one? You might not remember this one, Chris, but this was a huge movie for us when we were younger. Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Cyndi Lauper.
Cyndi Lauper sang the song, but it stars Sarah Jessica Parker
and Helen Hunt.
Okay, I never saw it, but I've heard of those actresses.
Well, that movie they're probably going to be remaking that one pretty soon.
And it's interesting. A lot of times in our research too, we find out that they were, going to make a TV show based off the movie, or they were going to make a sequel, or they were, or a reboot was in the works, 25 years later. And then it just never comes to be. So I think a lot of times, there's a lot of big talk in Hollywood about producing the same thing over and over again. It just kind of falls off.
Just like they made an A-Team movie a few years ago of the TV show from the 80s. Yeah. And it wasn't the same. It's a different time. It's a different time, different era. And the actors and actresses back then, you can't compete. I compare them to back then. I think the actors and actresses back then are much better talented wise than now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also feel like because they shot a lot of those old films on film, and they used a lot of practical effects instead of CGI, they just have such a different look and a feel to them. And I love that part of it. You talked about Poltergeist. There really isn't any CGI. It's all in-camera effects.
Yeah, they wouldn't even use fake bones. They would just CGI the bones in now.
Yeah, now they would definitely be fake bones. Yes. For sure. But I love that about those movies. We were just watching, not us, but I have a daughter who is 13 years old. And we recently watched Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom together. And she loved it. And it doesn't look like a modern film. It looks, old, but it's just has this richness to it. And the acting in it is great. And cinematically, it's beautiful to watch. It's, it's almost the difference between looking at, a painting of something, a great work of art, and looking at, something that somebody.
You're really going deep tonight.
I really am. But yeah, I do think that there's such a richness to these old movies. And a lot of the times I hate it. I can't think. And also I think the movies from the 80s hold up. Technology was pretty good back then. I mean, it wasn't as great, but it was pretty good.
And also too, I wanted to get your guys' thoughts. The soundtrack. I remember buying a lot of soundtracks, cassettes from movies because of the music from these movies.
Yeah, even things like Cocoon, which we talked about it. I had some feelings about it. That soundtrack was amazing. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. But that movie, like a lot of these movies we're finding, you can't get them on streaming. So Cocoon is not available on streaming. And I looked it up because I was thinking, right, like you would think that was such a huge movie. Of course, that would be available on streaming. It's not because of the music rights. And, I don't know it to be true, but it probably is. The Pump Up the Volume was not available on streaming either. We had to watch that on YouTube in bits and pieces. Yeah. Now we've gotten to a point where we know now we got to look ahead of time before we.
Well, we did 50 episodes without a problem, and then season 2 we've been riddled with problems trying to find.
Well, I think in season 1 I only had to buy one DVD. It was Eddie and the Cruisers. Oh. Do you remember that movie?
That movie, that name sounds familiar.
Right. So that movie was actually shot around where we live. So it was a big movie down here and in New Jersey because it was about a Jersey band. So it was this big movie, but that movie I had to buy on DVD. I had to buy Cocoon. I just had to order a movie for an upcoming episode. So I own these DVDs now. We're actually trying to give away the Cocoon DVD because we will never watch it again. We both really did not like it. So if you would like a copy of Cocoon, I'm happy to send it. Or if any of your viewers or listeners would like that copy of Cocoon,
if you autograph it for me, I take it. I still have a DVD player. By the way, I wanted to ask you about that. The shrinking DVD market and people having DVD players, because it seems like everything's now going to live stream.
Yeah, fortunately, my husband still buys DVDs regularly, so we have a working DVD player that that's perfectly fine, and so we have it ready to go whenever we want to watch. A lot of times we do go to streaming because it's easier, but yeah, we have that DVD backup in case we need it.
Yeah, I don't own a DVD player. I do, but I don't think I can't hook it up to my TV. I don't even know how to make it work.
We might have 3. We'll give you one.
Mine still works, and it's from 2008.
Wow. Yeah. Did you say you have a VCR or
a DVD player, and it's from 2008, and it still works. But I admit, lately everything I watch is live streamed.
Yeah.
But I still miss having DVDs. I still have DVDs at home, and it's just like with Blockbuster Video and that. We used to make a big deal about going to these video stores and getting a movie and popcorn and all that, and it's all disappeared.
I know. Yeah. Oh, that was I can remember when we got our first video store rental place down where we live. It was such a huge deal to have that in town. And then with Blockbuster, you get your popcorn, and that wasn't that long ago. I mean, that was less than 20 years ago, and then they just disappeared. But just that, that ritual of going and looking at all the pictures on the front.
It made it a bigger deal for your family too. I feel like you would come home and even your dad would watch it, and like,
and that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Something. Oh, sorry about that. It's technology, Wi-Fi there. But what do you feel about the movie theaters being reducing too? There's not as many, or you're seeing some of them go under?
Yeah, well, like we were saying before, where we live is this shore town, so they need to have things like that for when it rains. So I think we'll always have something like that. And one of the things I love about the local movie by us is that they will play old movies. So recently they showed Jaws, they've shown Goonies. We saw Goonies there.
Goonies. Yeah.
So I love that. But yeah, people just don't go out. I will say, I have 3 kids, and to take all of my kids out to the movies, to buy the tickets, to get the popcorn, they all want candy too, and soda. It's so much money. Like, it's so expensive. And when they come, when you know that the movie's just going to be on streaming, even if you purchase it on streaming, it's like $40 maybe, but that's so much less than if I were to take my entire family out to go see, Inside Out 2 or something. It would just be so much more expensive.
A lot of the movie theaters tell me they make more money off the food and beverage sales than they do the actual movie ticket. But the thing is, I still like going to a movie theater, and obviously the pandemic didn't help for 2 years as well. And I watched a movie the other day on Netflix, and it really should have been on the big screen. It was Beverly Hills Cop.
Oh, the new one.
The new one, and
Wow.
it was on Netflix, and I really liked it. It paid homage to the original one from 40 years ago, but it really should have been on the big screen, and that's the sad part now, is some of these movies that you watch on Netflix really should have been on a big screen, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Well, there are some movies that I feel it's such an experience. Like we've been talking, the new Beetlejuice is coming out in a few weeks. So,
oh wow, did not know that.
Yeah,
Yes.
the Beetlejuice is coming out
September 6th, I think.
Yeah, we don't work for them, but we're excited about it. We are big Tim Burton fans, big Beetlejuice fans.
Yeah.
So I just said it 3 times, so be careful.
Yeah, okay.
Batman will be in that movie too.
Yeah.
Michael Keaton.
Yeah,
Michael Keaton will be in it. Yeah, but I love a movie experience. I used to love to just go by myself and watch a movie. We are both huge movie fans. And I do miss that experience of just going and sitting in a movie theater and watching something. It really is something that I hope maintains. I hope my kids have the opportunity to do that when they get older.
I thought it was great last summer when everyone went to go see like the Barbie movie and even Oppenheimer. You know what I mean? When the theaters got full again, we went and saw Barbie and in a full theater, and it's just such a different experience, especially when you see a funny movie, to laugh with a room full of people and to watch it and to kind of experience that together. It's really a cool thing.
How good was that movie?
So good.
We loved Barbie.
We loved it.
It was pretty funny. And that's the other thing. You mentioned comedies. There aren't many comedies that come out these days either. That's one thing that's great from the 80s. In fact, we have to really be careful not to pick too many of a genre. Like when we're both picking our movies, we try and just spread it out, some drama here, some comedy there. But in the 80s and the 90s, and even in the, in the early 2000s, you had great comedies that came out, and they just don't make them like that anymore. We just did earlier this season The Great Outdoors. Such a funny movie. And
John Candy, the late John Candy.
The late great John Candy.
Canadian John Candy.
Yes, he died too young at 44.
Oh yeah,
and he's been gone for 30 years now, and it's just sad.
I know.
He was just such a great actor, and he every role he did, he knew how to play it.
100%. Yeah.
We did a whole thing on him when we did last year, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And we learned a lot about him and his life. That was Kim's. You had some just bang up research for that one. Good job.
Good one.
Good job.
We try to mix into around Halloween. We try to do make ourselves do horror movies, because neither of us are necessarily big horror movie fans. But we, for the month of October, we take turns picking a Halloween or horror type movie. And then at Christmas time, we tried to do a little more holiday themes, just because there's, again, at that time, they really made some effort around the holidays to, kind of put things out there that resonated.
Although you picked a movie that was not a Christmas movie. So we'll get your opinion on this one, Chris. I know everyone has this argument about, what is it? The one with Bruce Willis.
Die Hard.
Die Hard, yes.
Christmas movie. Okay. And it is a Christmas movie, right? We all agree. However, the movie that Kim chose as a Christmas movie is Funny Farm with Chevy Chase. Do you remember that one?
Yes, I do. I think it came out, 85, 86?
Yeah,
yep,
probably.
Somewhere right around then. Now that movie, not a Christmas movie.
There's Christmas in it.
It has some Christmas in it, but Kim contends that it is a Christmas movie.
I still don't think Die Hard with Bruce Willis is a Christmas movie. That's my take.
We'll find out. We'll have to watch that one soon.
Yep, we sure will.
But my 2 favorite movies of the 80s, I had a ton, but I'll keep it to 2, is Uncle Buck, obviously with the late John Candy and Macaulay, Home Alone Kid, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Thank God they've never rebooted Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
They tried with that Parker Lewis Can't Lose.
I like that show though. But yeah, Ferris. We realized, I just mentioned The Great Outdoors. That movie was also written by
John
Hughes. So John Hughes, I think, really raised us. Mm-hmm. He's our other dad, I think. And because so many of the movies that are my favorites from the 80s were written by, and he didn't direct Great Outdoors, but he did write it. But yeah, Ferris Bueller, Pretty in Pink, all of them. What was the one we just watched? Home Alone. But what's the one? The Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
We watched The Breakfast Club not long ago, and that one was pretty great. Yeah.
Nowadays, I don't think you could reboot it with today's
No,
No.
not at all.
technology in today's
Not at
world.
all.
That's just there's certain movies, like you said, that shouldn't be rebooted.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, also with attention spans, that movie is not a lot happens in that movie. It's like a play.
Mhm. It was
Yeah.
written like a play.
It was written like a play. And so I think today people expect movies to have a lot happening and going, especially a teen movie. I mean, you got to remember that movie was, marketed towards young people. And
we didn't have anything else to do.
we didn't have anything else to do.
Nowadays, everyone in detention, if they still do detentions, would be on their phones.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
true.
Exactly.
That's very true.
Yep.
I'm gonna ask you this: are you guys still good for time?
Yeah.
You guys still good for a little more time? Okay.
Yep.
When I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, I always watched the Siskel and Ebert for movie reviews. Did you guys watch them? And do you take anything from what those guys did on TV to your show?
It's interesting because we reference Roger Ebert pretty much every week. He started coming up early when we were watching it as the penultimate critic of all movies of that time. So, and we obviously knew who Siskel and Ebert were and, the impact that they had on the films and, everybody was waiting for their scores. So usually we do talk about Roger Ebert and what he thought of the movies that we're going to watch, just kind of now because it makes the other one laugh. But, we're always like, well, what did Ebert think of it?
They were great. I will also say both Siskel and Ebert were great writers.
Yeah.
I was just reading a review written by Gene Siskel, and they're fun. They wrote these I see why they were so popular and so famous. They wrote really fun columns, and
you can
they
read all of their things online. Which is great.
Yeah, it's great for us because, it helps us form opinions. Although, as we just mentioned, Roger Rabbit, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which came out today, Roger Ebert loved that movie.
Loved it.
Loved it.
4 stars, loved it.
Yeah, loved it.
So
so we were not happy with Roger Ebert over that one.
Well, back being in the 80s, being a kid, obviously there was no social media. So we relied on Siskel and Ebert or movie critics and newspapers. And now you don't see newspapers anymore. Everything's all digital. And when movies come out nowadays, everything's leaked. It was harder to leak about what a movie was going to be like other than the previews in the movie theater or from Siskel and Ebert. It's just a different time now.
Absolutely. Well, they do have nowadays. You have the Rotten Tomatoes scores, and you also have Metacritic, and we look at those
sometimes.
I mean, it doesn't deter us. We'll watch a really bad movie. We don't care what they have to say. And there have been times where things have gotten such bad scores, and then we loved it, like Flowers in the Attic. So
we didn't love that,
so Flowers in the Attic was a movie that we never saw. Neither of us saw it. But it was like one of those ones where we would always say, let's just get together and watch this movie. It seems crazy. And we watched it, and it is crazy. It probably does deserve those low scores, but I mean, it was fun.
Also Annie, the famous movie Annie, they really panned her. The critics tore Annie apart when that movie came out. And you feel really bad because yes, she's an actress, and yes, she's singing and dancing in this movie, but she's also like 10 years old.
I know. They were so
really
mean. They were so mean to her. It was terrible.
Wanted to ask you, for me, the worst movie I saw in the 80s was called Space Pirates. I don't know if the late Robert Urich was in it, but it was an awful movie. But there was, here's a story I wanted to share with you guys quickly. Back in 1986, Top Gun came out. Well, there was another movie that came out in 86 and it was sold out. And I ended up going to see Top Gun. And I'm like, geez, now I get see this awful Top Gun movie. And all of a sudden, 2 hours later, I'm like, this is one of the best movies I ever saw. And it was just amazing. Sometimes you go to a movie where you think, this is going to be lousy, not very good, and it'll surprise the hell out of you.
Yeah. Well, I also, that reminds me of something from that time period. So there was not a lot to do when we were younger, except go to the movies. So there were a lot of movies that we would go see in the movie theaters simply because there was nothing else to do. I remember seeing a lot of movies over and over again, just because that's what all the kids were doing. For some reason, the movie that keeps coming to my mind with this, although I know there was a lot of other ones like this, but what was the one with Whitney Houston?
The Bodyguard?
I saw that so many times in the movie theater, and I couldn't even tell you what the movie was about. I don't even remember, but we I went to the movie. I paid to see that movie at least 3 times, 3 or 4 times. It is about a bodyguard.
Yes.
Yeah.
I gotta ask you guys this since I have you on. Do you guys know how many movies were actually made in the 1980s in total? I'm curious about that.
No idea.
Well, we have 58 episodes. So,
and counting, 58 and coming.
Yes. Check in with us in a couple of years and we'll let you know what number we're up to.
Maybe we'll look it up too. We'll try to find out that fact for a future episode.
Yeah. So keep listening.
We'll keep you posted.
We'll tell you.
I'm going to put you on the spot with this question for both you, Emily and Kim. Which 80s movie, if you could pick one, would you like to see rebooted in 2025? Just one movie.
Oh, I know what it is. And they talked about this, redoing this one. I think it would be great. The Last Starfighter.
Oh, geez.
Do you know The Last Starfighter?
The movie sounds familiar. I might have saw it.
Great movie. Love The Last Starfighter. So The Last Starfighter is about this guy. He's like going off to college. So he's an older teenager who's really good at a video game. And he gets so good at it and he wins it. And it turns out that is the test to find out if you can go and be, in the army of this space army for this thing that's going on. And the effects in it are terrible. The masks in it that the aliens wear are pretty bad. The girlfriend of the one.
It's not a good movie.
I love it though.
Yeah.
I really love this movie. And it's not that great, but I love the premise of it. And I think they could really do something cool with it nowadays.
And I don't know how I would answer that question, but I will tell you what movie that I want to see a sequel to because they've been talking about it forever. And it's my favorite movie of all time is Goonies. What are they doing?
Really?
Get them all back together.
Really?
They've been talking about it. And
Data's like out there. He's prime.
He's ready. Corey Feldman, what's he doing?
He's rocking. Corey Feldman is rocking out.
Yeah.
I think, but they're all working.
Yeah.
Doing
I think
something.
I think it could happen.
What did you guys think of the Top Gun sequel? It took, I don't know, almost 35 years, but I actually thought it, I don't think it was as good as the original one, but I think it paid a lot of honor to the first one. I thought it was good.
I didn't see it.
I was gonna say that's a boy movie. I watched about half of it and then I might have fallen asleep. My kids liked it.
I would like to watch it, but I just haven't gotten to.
I mean, I do like Tom Cruise. I had a thing for Tom Cruise for sure. So I watched it. And I gotta say, I don't know if did you see Tom Cruise jump from the building at the end of the Olympics? From the stadium?
I heard about it, but I didn't actually see it. I
saw it in real time. I literally jumped out like it happened. I ran out into my backyard where my husband was, and I just yelled, "It was Tom Cruise!" Like I was so excited about the whole thing. It triggered something in me. I was really excited about it.
And he's almost 70 years old now. He's in his 60s.
Yeah, he has to be, but he's looking good. He's doing the thing. I don't know what he's taking, what supplements he's on, but they're working for him. He's doing a good job.
Good for that guy.
Good for that guy. Yeah.
And and some of these guys at 60 and 70s, they don't need the money, but they love doing it. And to me, I'll take a guy in his 60s and 70s over the newer actors because these guys knew how to act back in the 70s and 80s.
Oh yeah.
Like Harrison Ford, he's still going for it.
Harrison Ford is, I may have named my child after a Harrison Ford character. So
wow.
Yeah.
I know everybody's going to say Harrison Ford Star Wars, but to me, my favorite Harrison movie was The Fugitive in 1993 with Tommy Lee Jones.
That is a great movie. I saw that one. I know I saw that in the movie theater.
I've seen it 200 times and I still love it.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah, and to me, I hope they don't reboot that either because you can't replace Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones. Tommy Lee Jones was like Lex Luthor was to Superman. He was the enemy of Richard Kimball, and that to me that was one of Harrison Ford's best movies. He's done a lot of great movies, but to me that one, I hope you guys review that one someday in the future.
Put it on the list.
Put it on the list. Certainly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Before we wrap it up, I do this with all my guests. What are some fun facts about Emily Paul and Kim Tweed? And I know Emily is a left-handed like I am. I'm lefty.
She is,
and that's not even the funnest fact about me, Chris.
Oh my god!
And you're a Lego maniac.
I am a Lego maniac, amateur Lego maniac for sure.
Well, I have a fun fact.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, my fun fact is always that I was a backup dancer for one show for Weird Al Yankovic.
Wow, did not know that.
one show.
What year was that?
It was in the mid 90s, probably 1996. He was on tour and he used to pick people out of the audience. And I got to do the dance. Remember, he did the Nirvana song, Smells Like Nirvana.
Yeah.
So I did like the cheerleader dance from the Nirvana video. So, and I got to hang out with him and it was super awesome.
Did you get a picture with him back then?
I didn't get a picture with him. I have a signed picture of him that I still have. And he actually drew tattoos on my arm. So I have pictures of me with the tattoos that he drew on my arms. But yeah, they didn't have cell phones back then. So I couldn't snap any, I didn't even know I was going to be on the thing. No one had pictures.
We had the big old cameras back then, and only the rich people could really afford the high-tech cameras back then.
Exactly. I know. What's your fun fact?
So mine's not nearly as exciting as Weird Al, but I always tell people that for a short time in my career, I was Betty Crocker, the cookbook person, because I worked at a place where I edited cookbooks, and I got to act as the writer of the secret underground writer of the Betty Crocker cookbooks for a while. So I could tell you how to bake a cake like nobody's business.
a Jell-O mold.
Like a Jell-O mold. Yeah, exactly.
And what's a fun fact about you, Chris?
Oh,
we shared ours.
Okay, you're putting me on a fun fact about myself.
It's called turning the tables. That's what we do.
Well, I'm left-handed.
Okay.
I learned to skate and play hockey when I was 4.
That's typical Canadian.
Definitely. A fun fact about me. Geez. I went to Philadelphia. I've been to a lot of sporting events. Fun fact.
You've seen The Fugitive 200 times. That is
a huge fact. That's
I've
true.
seen it 200 times. I'm a huge movie fan. I love sports. I love music. One of my favorite songs from the 80s, Phil Collins, In the Air Tonight from 1981. I did karaoke once. I did karaoke once in New York City in 2019 at a bar, and I emptied out the bar. I had a few drinks in me, but it was a lot of fun doing karaoke.
What was the song? What was the song you sang?
Don't Stop Believing, Detroit Rock City, and the third song, if I can remember, was This Is How We Do It by Montel Jordan.
Excellent.
Oh my God, that's the best karaoke song that you could have ever picked. I got to tell you, you're much braver than we are because we would never do that.
I had a few drinks in me, and the thing is, I wasn't from New York City, so those people, I never get to see them again. But it was a lot of fun, and I'm afraid of heights, but when I did some traveling, I went up the top of the rock, I went up the Sears Tower in Chicago, and I went up the arch in St. Louis, 637 feet. So yeah, there is many fun facts about me.
Yeah, you have a ton of fun facts.
Yeah, you're fun. You pass.
But I like the fact that you put me on the spot before I could. So
there you go. That's what we do.
Yeah. Definitely. Hey, before we wrap this up, favorite 80s song and 80s TV show from the both of you?
You know a song I love from the 80s, and I just heard it recently, and they did a TikTok dance to it not long ago that I thought was fantastic, was Come On Eileen.
Oh, yeah.
Great song.
Such a good song, right?
1983.
The one that's been stuck in my head, I was at an event and they played that song. I was like, ooh, 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 it's magic. You know. And I feel like that's been stuck in my head for a while. So I'm not my favorite.
Is that 80s?
I think
yes.
so.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Who sings it?
And then
do you know who sings it?
That's a good I know the song. I just can't remember who sings it, but I know Adam Sandler uses that song in a lot of his movies.
Okay, yeah, maybe that's right.
If my Alexa was closer, I would definitely ask her.
Favorite TV show. I was a Cosby Show kid, which I know we're not allowed to talk about that anymore, but that was
be confident and controversial.
The Cosby Show was my favorite show at the time. So
it was a good one. Well, I really enjoyed Webster.
No, that can't be your favorite.
I liked Webster. Didn't you like Webster? That was a good show.
Yes, and the father was Alex Karras, who was NFL, the late Alex Karras. He was a former NFL player with the Detroit Lions, and he reinvented himself into an actor, and he actually married his TV wife in real life.
Yeah, Ma'am and George were in love in real life.
See? That was an underrated TV show. For me, being a guy, it was shows like the Dukes of Hazzard,
Oh yeah.
Knight Rider, Magnum, and Who's the Boss. But I would say the original Magnum was my first one because just the actors and the camaraderie and the story writing too, and plus he had the cool car. So for me, growing up in the 80s, any shows with these cool cars kind of attracted me.
Well, I never watched Magnum PI when I was a kid. But I got to tell you, as a middle-aged woman, I really have an appreciation for Tom Selleck that I never had before in my life. He's pretty amazing.
He was supposed to be the original Indiana Jones.
Oh, we know.
Yeah, we heard. We did 3 Men and a Baby last season, so we learned that fun fact.
Yep.
And we have another viewer, Diana. I was a Punky Brewster fan and Cosby Show fan.
Good one, Diana. That was a great one.
It was a great show.
Cosby Show was good. It was a good show, and it lasted 8 seasons?
It was on for a very long time, and then you had a different world. They had a whole universe.
Dwayne Wayne. Yeah, that was great.
But and we forgot to talk about Cheers too. That was a great show too.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
But I noticed these new TV shows don't seem to last as long as the ones from the 80s.
Yeah, I think they just kind of let things go in the 80s, where now they have more like calculated beginnings and ends for things.
Yeah.
Any thoughts of you guys doing your own 80s music podcast someday?
Oh, maybe.
We don't have a strong, like I love music from the 80s and have, we're both really big music fans. But I don't know what our angle would be on that one yet. We'd just be like, that song? That's good. It's a good song. And then would just be us listening to songs. I do miss, we could talk about music videos. And what we've noticed is a lot of the directors of movies, a lot of the directors of movies from the 80s got their start, or at some point in their career, they were directing music videos because MTV was so huge and there were just, those music videos were so prolific, and that a lot of these directors, that's kind of how you could get some experience.
You could get into the film world by doing a lot of music videos first.
And before we wrap this up, favorite 80s food and drink?
Oh my goodness.
80s food.
Well, we ate a lot of Elio's pizza in my house, frozen Elio's pizza.
Gross.
And then, Clearly Canadian. Do you remember those Clearly Canadian drinks?
Yes.
Yeah, those were pretty great.
Well, I gotta say, beverage of choice, the Ecto Cooler, which was pretty great. And food wise, I don't know. We didn't eat a lot of crazy. We didn't have a lot of food. You know what I do? I do miss like the McDonald's food. If you eat it now, it just doesn't hit like it used to. You know what I mean?
And it's been downsized too. Downsized. Yeah.
Remember the one that they used to have that was you keep the hot side hot and the cool side cool?
Yes.
I forget what that was called.
What was that called?
Or the styrofoam containers. They used to.
Well, they're not so good.
No.
But yeah, miss those 80s. It was a great time. It was an awesome way to grow up. I'm really glad that we had that. I'm sure my kids will grow up and they'll talk about, the 2020s, and they'll have some great stories from that as well.
Absolutely. And overall in the 1980s, for me, it's the two top artists for music, Madonna for females, and for males, Michael Jackson.
Oh, I'm Duran all the way.
Duran?
I'm gonna go Prince.
Okay.
Prince.
Yeah.
Good one.
He passed away much too soon too.
Oh man, yeah.
I take it your favorite Prince song is "Let's Go Crazy"?
Maybe. I like them all.
Absolutely. But finally, we're gonna wrap this up. Where can my audience follow you both on social media? Your podcast show, Confidentially Controversial. And again, how often does a new episode come out?
Sure. So our episodes come out every Friday. And you can visit our website. It's confidentlycontroversial.com. You can follow us on Instagram at confidentlycontroversial. And we are on TikTok at confidentlycontro. We have a YouTube. We were trying to figure out what it was. I don't know.
It's Confidently Controversial is our YouTube channel. If
and
you
I subscribed.
Thank you. If you search Confidently Controversial, you can see that we put out, we try and put out a lot of fun content, clips from our podcast. Like we were saying before, we don't have video of ourselves but we do have a lot of audio of us chatting. So we try and put things out, and but definitely find us Confidently Controversial. We're on all the different platforms, Apple Podcasts. What are the other ones?
Spotify.
That's the other one.
Every place.
Every place. Just Google it. You'll find us. Subscribe, like us, and write us a comment. Rate us.
Tell us what movie to watch next.
Tell us how much you love us. That's all we really ask.
I'll be sending you about 50 requests.
Perfect.
We love it.
We'll
Thank you, Chris.
By the way, is this the first podcast you come on video? Live video?
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
For the podcast, I would say. I said, we have our other careers, but for ours, we were actually joking about that because, we've both worked in marketing, and I've done PR work in the past. And I've, usually I'm setting somebody else up to do this kind of thing.
We write talking points for a lot of people. And today we got to write them for ourselves. So it's a nice change of events.
And this is probably your first Canadian show too.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever been to Canada yet?
Niagara Falls.
Niagara Falls, good choice. Our version of Vegas, good choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a wild place.
I've been up there, and I actually have family that is from Canada. So my sister-in-law is Canadian, and that makes my niece and nephew. They have dual citizenship, so we love Canada in my family.
What part of Canada from? I'm from Ontario.
I don't know. And I'm sorry, Krista, if you're listening to this, I am drawing a blank on where you grew up, but I love you.
Okay. It's just like I had an artist from Nashville on my show the other day, and he's from Alabama, and he's like, yeah, I have cousins in London, Ontario. I'm like, I'm only an hour away. And I'm like, it really is a small world when you talk to your guests, no matter where they are in the world, there is always some kind of connection.
Yep, absolutely.
And I got one more comment from you too, from Diana. Yes to both, all for me.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Right.
Thanks, Diana.
Well, I want to say, Emily and Kim, thank you for giving me over an hour of your time. It originally was 45 minutes, but I always let my guests go because I think when you're having good conversations, to keep it going. And when you if you give me a little bit of time tonight, I will send you the video, the audio, and I will edit this into about 5 or 6 clips. And I also will tag you on and add you on TikTok. The old guy joined TikTok 4 years ago, and I learned how to do media work through TikTok.
Great. Awesome. And you know what else you have to send us is your address, because we are going to send you that Cocoon DVD because we don't want it.
Okay. I'll watch it. If you guys autograph it for me,
sign it. We'll sign it and we'll send it to you. It's all yours.
Okay. And you guys in the future have an open invite to come back on my show again as well, and maybe talk about the 90s movies.
Yeah,
we'll be back. We will be back. And thank you so much. We really appreciate being on the show, and hope that your listeners, if someone who's a fan of your show starts following us, please let us know that you found us on this show. I would love to hear that. And we'll let you know, Chris, if we get any crossover fans.
And I will promote you guys too and your show.
Thanks.
And I'm looking forward to your next episode coming out next week, right?
Next Friday.
Yep.
Next Friday. It's a Rick Moranis movie. I'm guessing it's I'm guessing it's
You don't know.
That's an obscure movie.
And remember, it's a few weeks from now. It'll be like 3 weeks from now. And that's the movie. And you'll know it right away. You'll be like, oh my gosh, that's the one she was talking about.
I'm gonna try to find.
And I'll give you a shout out tonight.
Well, hey, I really appreciate that as well. I really love talking to all my guests and getting to know them and learning from them. And I thought this was a fun show. And thank you so much for giving me over an hour of your time. And our show will air Monday on WQEE 99.1 FM in Newton, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta. And I will send you a link to the station so you can listen to it when it airs Monday night at 8 o'clock as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Emily and Kim. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay,
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed season 8, episode 39, overall 424 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, sponsored by BarryCullen.com. Guys, I am going to take a little bit of time off next week. I'm going to be in Buffalo on Tuesday, Wednesday, covering the Buffalo Bisons, doing some freelance media work. And then Thursday, I am off to Toronto next Thursday for the CNE and the Toronto Argonauts game against the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. So my next live with CDP Sports and Entertainment talk show, sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet here in Guelph, is going to be next Friday, August 23rd at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific time. And my special guest, her name is True New Yang. True New Yang. Hopefully I pronounced that right. She is a Vietnamese stand-up comedian out of Los Angeles. So Friday, August 23rd, 5 p.m. Eastern, my next live with CDP Sports and Entertainment talk show, sponsored by Barry Cullen and on WQEE 99.1 FM. Again, my special guest is going to be True New Yang, a stand-up comedian out of Los Angeles, California. And the next Argo Bounce live audio show with Nick Small and myself, episode 10, I believe will be Saturday, August 24th. Just not sure of the time yet. So Nick and I will break down the Argos Rough Riders CNE game, and also Nick and mine CNE experience, as well as the Argos Saskatchewan game. So next Friday, 5 o'clock, live with CDP Sports and Entertainment talk show returns. And then Saturday, August 24th, time to be announced, the Argo Bounce live audio show, episode 10, will return with Nick Small and myself. And I've got another comment here. This is from Ed. Great show. Our Canadian relatives live in Oshawa. Oshawa is exactly 2 hours from where I live in Guelph. It's a suburb of Toronto, so it really is a small world. And Ed, I am M's dad. Cool. Hi, Ed. Thank you so much for watching our show tonight with Emily and Kim, and I appreciate it. It really is a small world. Every time I have guests on, there is a Canadian connection with them as well. So I definitely am going to have Emily, Paul, and Kim Tweed on my show again, and confidentially controversial podcast, guys. Just Google it. They're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and I'll put their website up again as well. And Diane, thank you so much for watching as well. And Robbie Schneider, thank you so much for watching as well. Robbie is the host of his own podcast show, the 716 Sports Blizzard podcast out of Buffalo, New York. Robbie will be on live stream tonight at 7:15 p.m. Eastern. Check out his podcast. Him and his special guests are going to be talking about the Buffalo Bills as well. And Emily and Kim's website or YouTube channel is youtube.com/confidentially controversial. Please check them out. They do a great job on their podcast show and reviewing movies from the 80s and 90s as well. All right, guys, as we wrap this show up, like I do all my shows, the Cambridge and District Humane Society. There's a lot of animals looking for forever homes and families. They're at 1650 Dunbar Road in Cambridge, Ontario. Telephone number 519-623-7722. And all the animals up for adoption at the Cambridge District Humane Society, they're on their website at cambridgehumanesociety.org. That's cambridgehumanesociety.org. And if you're looking to volunteer, you can fill out a volunteer form there as well. And they're doing a monthly 50-50 raffle draw. The money goes towards their programs at the Cambridge District Humane Society. You can pop by their office at 1650 Dunbar Road in Cambridge and get tickets, or again, the website, cambridgehumanesociety.org. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show is hosted by yours truly, Chris Pomay, is on weeknights from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern on radio station WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key, the home of Southern sports and talk, the heartbeat of Atlanta. Our radio station's website is wqeefm.radio12345.com, and check out my show tonight at 8 o'clock with Nick Small, as me and Nick did our show last night, episode 9 of the Argo Bounce live audio show. That'll air tonight at 8 o'clock on WQEEFM.radio12345.com. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show is live streamed on these platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter /X, Twitch, LinkedIn, and now available on Instagram. You can also check out my website at beacons beacons.ai/Chris D. Palme. All my digital media work and all my social media sites and previous radio shows are on beacons.ai/Chris D. Palme. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, again, is sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, or give them a call at 519-824-0210, or email them at info@barrycullen.com. Speaking of Barry Cullen Chevrolet right now, it's employee pricing event going on at Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Offer ends on August 26th, only 12 days away. Hurry. 2024 Silverado 1500 high country pickup truck. You can get up to $10,500 off select Silverado 1500 crew cab models. More details at barrycullen.com or pop by the dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Live with CDP Sports Talk. Merchandise is coming soon with t-shirts. I will let you know when they are ready. You can also follow this content creator at TikTok at Live with CDP. StreamYard is the official live stream provider of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. If you're into webinars or podcasting, such as myself, check out StreamYard.com. They do have business plans available. Just go to StreamYard.com and contact the sales department for business pricing for StreamYard. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. The podcast, the audio version, is available on these platforms: iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify for podcasters, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Spotify, Castbox, LinkedIn, Pandora, Tuned In, and YouTube Music. And make sure you hit that subscribe notification on YouTube Music and also on my YouTube channel. Finally, guys, you can email or text Live with CDP Sports Talk at cpalme19@gmail.com or text the show at 519-820-7188. Any comments, questions, suggestions, any kind of feedback would be greatly appreciated. And before we go, guys, I was at the Toronto Argonauts 39-25 win against Calgary last Friday as media. And before we wrap up the show, I'm going to play this interview. I did post-game interview with Toronto Argonauts starting quarterback Nick Arbuckle. Chris Palme here, radio host of Live with CDP Sports Entertainment Show on WQEE 99.1 FM. I'm in a happy Toronto Argonauts locker room at BMO Field after tonight's 39-25 win, and I have starting quarterback Nick Arbuckle with me, and I'm going to get Nick's thoughts on tonight's win over Calgary. Hey, Nick, congratulations on a nice win coming on 5 days short notice.
Yeah, thank you. It was a total team effort. I mean, whenever your special teams and defense and offense scores touchdowns, you get a lot of takeaways, you get big returns, huge punts. I mean, you couldn't have more of a complete effort. It was phenomenal to be a part of.
What did the coaches say to you guys at halftime? You guys are only down by 8 points, but you only had 7 points. But second half, you guys seem to be more effective with the ball. Was it the Grant return that kind of got you guys kick-started a little bit?
Yeah, the return got us kick-started. And honestly, what we talked about in halftime was just kind of staying the course. We knew we were getting some good production on offense. We weren't going 2 and out very often. We were getting first downs, putting together some drives. But, field position, we were backed up on a lot of our drives, inside our own 30. So even a couple first downs was still barely getting us to midfield. And so we knew as long as we just stayed the course, our special teams was going to come through, our defense was going to come through. We're going to start changing how field position was going. And if we just kept doing what we were doing, we were going to end up with field goals and touchdowns and start getting points on the board. And so, yeah, it was a great coaching, and we made some minor adjustments that we took advantage of with some big plays and just kept it rolling.
How difficult is it to face the same team twice in 5 days?
It's tough, but it's a lot tougher to face a different team in 5 days. Not that many things change from either opponent. There's always going to be a couple wrinkles. But at the end of the day, we know each other. We're going in for round 2. Basically we go into the first game knowing it's a 2-round fight. whatever plays you install, you don't get to, they're coming up in the second match. And so, I think both of us fought hard on both sides of the sideline. And we just came up with the plays we needed to on all three phases of the game.
How big is the bye week?
Great. I think, our bye week comes at a critical time. Whenever you can get a bye week right in the middle of the season, that's huge. It's kind of like a reset, get our bodies right, get some of our guys from 6 game back healthy, hopefully, and just keep things going and get ready and energized to go into the Labor Day and the last half of this season.
Nick, were there any sort of pre-game jitters for it's your first start in a while, or you felt like, this is something because you had time to prepare for, you were ready right off?
No, it was fun. I didn't really have jitters. You always do a little bit because it's football and you love the game and you want to play well. But after the first play, kind of all that's out the window. This was an important one, though, because my last start last year, week 2 of the season, was against Calgary. That was my last career start. I tore my oblique, tried to fight through it, and threw a pick, got pulled, and never played again in Ottawa. And got to play here and there, but to have my first start again against the team that effectively I thought maybe ended my career, but didn't sign anywhere in free agency and stuff. To be able to have the opportunity here was huge, and it's great blessing to be out there.
I mean, I remember talking to you in training camp. You didn't know if you were even going to play this series. To get this win and then a tournament for your team, it must be like a cherry on top of the cake.
Yeah, and it's just all about just staying with the process, and trusting in God's timing, and His plan for how my career is going to go. Whatever that may be. I didn't know if I was just coming here, and maybe my destiny was just to be a great mentor and coach on the sideline for Cam and helping him develop until Chad got back, or getting the opportunity to finally play here. Just always being ready for whatever it is, and embracing whatever role they give me to be a part of this team and help us get some wins.
When you see Polk run that route for a touchdown, what goes like? It looked, your eyes must have lit up when you saw them.
Yeah, we had a couple different sluggos in the game plan, some slant and go moves to the field. We talked about it the day before the game, the quarterbacks and Dinwiddie, and we talked about which ones we liked the most. I told him I really like this one here. We liked it in that area of the field. We expected we might get zero or man coverage down there. Makai's, phenomenal. He has the SEC reception record for a reason. He's a tremendous talent that we're lucky to have. And as soon as I saw him go cover zero and blitzing, we had max protection. I knew as long as I delivered a good pass, we were going to have a great result.
How important was the offensive line for you to, it was a bit of a bounce back game from after what happened on Calgary there.
Oh, and they're so great. They opened up huge lanes for Kadeem. Kadeem fed off their energy. They fed off Kadeem's energy. They gave me time to throw. They did a great job of pushing guys vertically, allowing me to step up in the pocket and get some good passing lanes. We had some injuries, and all credit to Gibbs. He's been sitting on this 6-game injured list and battling on and off the field, missing training camps for the past 2-3 seasons. And this is finally his time to get activated, first time I think all year. And he's stepping into play pretty much the whole second half of the game, and he did tremendous. And all credit to him for just being a true pro and coming to work every day.
The plan was to release the ball quickly. It did that today, and how important was that?
Yeah, it's kind of always my plan. I'm not the world's fastest athlete, so not many great things happen when I hold on the ball for a super long time. I'd rather the fast guys get the ball in their hands. So I had to top my drop. I try to get to my progression fast and get the ball to whoever's open, whoever I see, and let them do something special.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
That was Nick Arbuckle, the starting quarterback of the Toronto Argonauts after their 39-25 win over the Calgary Stampeders. And you can see more of that interview on my YouTube channel as well. Again, I want to say thank you to my guests tonight, Emily, Paul, and Kimberly Tweed from Confidentially Controversial podcast for coming on here tonight. And thank you to everyone watching this live streamed on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, X, and Instagram, and on all my major audio platforms. And those people who are listening on WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, and sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet dealership here in Guelph. I hope everybody has a great evening, enjoy the CFL games. We've got Montreal, Saskatchewan tonight at 9 o'clock. Saturday, Edmonton and Hamilton at 7 o'clock. And then Sunday, Winnipeg at BC at 7 o'clock. The Argonauts are on a bye week, and they'll be back next Thursday night, 7:30 kickoff at BMO Field between Saskatchewan Roughriders and the Toronto Argonauts. Again, everybody, thank you so much for watching and listening to Live with CDP Sports Talk, sponsored by Barry Collins Chevrolet and on WQEE 99.1 FM. Have a great evening, great weekend, and we'll see you back here next Friday for the next edition of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show.